Have you ever wondered what the real difference is between the pros and, well, us? It's not just a better racket or a flashier swing. Nope, there's an invisible weapon that decides almost every single point. And today, we're going to decode it. So let's start with a mystery that every single club player knows. You watch a pro absolutely crush a forehand. You get on the court, you try to copy that exact same motion, and the swing feels pretty close, right? But somehow, their ball just explodes off the court with pace and spin, while yours sails about 10 feet long. What is going on there? What's the secret ingredient that we're all missing?
Well, here's the thing. Most of us, as amateur players, we're totally obsessed with what's happening from the waist up. Our arm, our wrist, the angle of the racket. But the real magic, the real source of power, it's not there. The pros build their shots from the ground up. All that explosive power comes from their legs and their hips, and the arm is really just the last link in this incredible kinetic chain. And look at this. This quote just nails it. And this isn't just some coach's opinion, it's a fact, backed by science. That invisible weapon we were talking about, it's their movement. Their incredible mobility lets them get into the perfect position for every shot, completely balanced and loaded with energy. That's why their shots have that extra pop, that extra precision, that ours just don't.
Okay, so how do we actually apply this? How does it translate into a blueprint for hitting a better ball? Well, it all starts with your stance. Because in tennis, your stance isn't just about how you're standing, it's the entire strategy for the shot you're about to hit.
First up, we've got the neutral stance. Think of this as your attacking weapon. Your opponent hits a short ball, this is your green light. You step into the court, transfer all your weight forward, and just drive through the ball. It's all about linear momentum, moving straight ahead, taking time away from your opponent, and just dictating the point. Now this is the stance you're going to see 90% of the time on the Pro Tour. It's the semi-open stance, the ultimate all-rounder. It lets you generate incredible rotational power from your hips, which is where all that heavy dipping topspin comes from. Plus, it's so versatile. It keeps your options open to go cross-court down the line. It hides your intentions until the very last second. So what happens when you're in trouble? You're stretched wide, scrambling just to stay alive in the point. That's where the open stance becomes your emergency button. It allows for the fastest possible hip rotation to get your racket on the ball, letting you turn a defensive scramble into a neutral ball or maybe even a chance to get back on offense. So here's the main takeaway. There's no single best stance. They're just tools in your toolbox for different moments in a point. Neutral for attacking, semi-open for rallies, and open for defense. But they all share one critical goal: getting your hips to face your target at the moment you make contact with the ball. That, right there, is the secret sauce to consistent power. All right, we've got the theory down. Now let's see how the absolute legends of the game put these ideas into practice. This is where the science of footwork really becomes an art form. First, you have to start with the master of effortless movement, Roger Federer. I mean, watching him play was like watching poetry in motion, wasn't it? His footwork was so unbelievably fluid, so graceful. He made some of the hardest shots in tennis look completely routine. And this right here reveals his true genius. It wasn't about him being the fastest guy out there. It was all about supreme efficiency. He would take dozens of these tiny little precise adjustment steps before the ball even bounced. That meant he was always in the perfect spot, perfectly balanced and ready to pounce. He never looked rushed because, well, he was always early. It's just a masterclass in preparation. And then you have the complete polar opposite. The force of nature, Rafael Nadal. As his great rival Marat Safin once famously said, to beat Federer, you had to be Nadal and just run around like a rabbit. Rafa was all about pure, raw, relentless physicality. Nadal's entire game was built on a foundation of just insane speed and court coverage. He could track down shots that were clean winners against literally anyone else on the planet. And from those desperate defensive spots, he could unleash a heavy offensive forehand. He didn't just cover the court. He turned the entire baseline into his personal weapon. But hang on, what if you could take the best of both worlds? What if you could combine Federer's efficiency with Nadal's defensive grit into one single, seamless movement? Well, that brings us to the next evolution of tennis footwork, Novak Djokovic. See, Djokovic took a movement that was pretty common on clay courts, the slide, and he perfected it on hard courts. That was something a lot of people thought was impossible. And the data shows this wasn't just for style points.
It gave him a real, measurable advantage over every single player on tour.
Get this, a scientific, peer-reviewed study found that Djokovic's hard court slide cut his recovery time on defensive shots by a staggering 10%. Now, 10% might not sound like a huge number, but in a sport decided by milliseconds, that's an eternity. It's basically a superpower. It meant he was already back in position for the next shot before his opponent even realized he'd gotten to the last one.
And this wasn't magic. It was pure biomechanics. It came from building a body that was perfectly engineered for this exact move. The study found 3 key ingredients: elite sprint speed to even get to the ball, unbelievable hip flexibility, specifically something called hip abduction, which is just the ability to stretch your leg way out from your body, and of course, world-class balance to recover instantly.
Okay, so we've decoded the pros, we've seen the art, we've seen the science. Now, let's get down to business. Let's turn all these principles into an action plan that you can actually take out on the court.
If you remember only one single thing from this entire explainer, please let it be this: focus on your hips. No matter what stance you're in, your number one goal is to rotate your hips through the shot so they end up facing your target. And the number one thing you have to avoid is the old school closed stance. It's an absolute power killer because it literally traps your hips, stopping you from rotating and robbing you of power and consistency.
And I'm not going to leave you hanging. Here are 2 super simple but incredibly effective drills you can try next time you play. The 4 corners drill forces you to move with a purpose and hit to a target. And the 4-shot sequence helps you build the rhythm and footwork patterns you need to move smoothly between shots and stances, just like the pros do.
And that brings us to a final, really important question. Look, we all want a better forehand, right? A more reliable backhand. But the true path to getting there might not be where you think it is. It might not be in your arm. It's probably in your feet. So are you going to keep tinkering with your swing, hoping for a different result? Or are you going to start building that foundation from the ground up? The choice is yours.
Hey, if this explainer helped you see the game in a new light, do me a huge favor and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We've really only scratched the surface here. In our next breakdowns, we're going to be decoding the serve, the return, and the all-important mental game. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the court.